All right, we're live. We are live. So hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar this evening, afternoon, depending on where you are in this country. I'm in New York, and Pedram is in California, and you, I'm sure, are all spread out in between. Just for those of you who don't know me, my name's Eric Goldman. I'm the editor of Holistic Primary Care, News for Health and Healing. And tonight we're going to have a conversation with Pedram Shojai, who's the director of the Corporate Wellness Academy and well.org. And what we're going to be talking about is the whole phenomenon of corporate wellness and where the opportunities are for physicians and healthcare professionals in this wellness space. I don't know how many of you are following this at all, but I'm getting press releases at least every week having to do with corporate wellness. The issue is huge. I mean, just yesterday I got a press release that came across my desk. This is data from Cision, so they're pretty credible corporate data trackers, and they're saying that Americans spend about $3.1 trillion in healthcare expenditures, and medical debt obviously is the #1 reason why Americans personally declare bankruptcy, and this is having huge impact in the corporate world. It's just unbelievable. They're estimating that health-related issues cost American corporations about $153 billion every year in lost productivity. And over 100,000 workers are overweight and obese. It's about 30% of the workforce. They're dealing with chronic diseases. And, I mean, it's just taking a huge, huge burden on the companies that basically make up our economy. And those of you who run practices and have large practices, I mean, you're sure you see it in your own employees, how many of them are getting sick or are just not well and are not functioning optimally. And it's having a tremendous effect. So I met Pedram a couple of years ago, and he told me that he's been involved in the wellness space, both as a practitioner himself and working with other practitioners, and helping practitioners find opportunity in that space. So I thought it would be really great to introduce you to Pedram Shojai, and he can tell you a little bit about himself and his background. But I think he's got a fascinating story, and he's got a lot to share as far as where the opportunities are and how practitioners like yourselves can find your way in. So with that, I'll turn it over to Pedram Shojai.
Great. Thanks for having me, Eric. And we've had a lot of online and offline conversations about this, and look, the fact of the matter is it's a mess out there. I got into corporate wellness kind of early on, and the environment was very different when I got involved in all this. It was a climate where there was a lot of dog and pony shows running through. There were a lot of people who had promised wellness, but basically showed up and did nothing. And so the companies were gun shy, and simultaneously the companies were suffering. And so they were grasping at whatever they could. It was a lot more of a challenge getting into the business when I did. And I had actually gotten out of the business. I'll give you a little background about myself. And then I got pulled back in just because it became such a lucrative market. Let me just say that. It just became such an incredible opportunity to jump back in and help people that I couldn't turn it away. So I was running 3 successful practices as a president of a medical group, trained as a doctor of Oriental medicine myself, and then saw the limitations in the industry, decided to work with a good friend of mine, and brought on a medical director. Next thing I know, one office turns to 2, turns to 3. We got 30 doctors. We got a lot of stuff going on, and Blue Cross was my boss. It's just we just got to the point where the third-party payer model was running the show, and I had the responsibility of also needing to feed these practices with these units or this currency of medicine, which is patients, sick people to help, and the efforts that I put into doing some lectures and making some connections in corporate became just this tsunami. I mean, we were getting 20, 30, 50 new patients a month coming from my corporations that I was working on. And, that translated into real money and real business, and it became a real thing. As I got a little better at it, I started to learn the way of the business, and was able to say, hey, look, I appreciate the fact that, I'm able to help your people, people, but what the heck are you feeding them over here? And so they'd say, well, can you help us? And I'd be like, great, give me 10 grand and I'll help you. And so suddenly I went from physician and physician owner of clinic to really a consultant and a sought after consultant in that industry, just helping them do the things that we're all trained to do, which is really on the front end is prevent and predict disease, and ideally not wait for someone to hit the sidewalk before having to mop them up. And that's kind of the interventional medical model that we were, that I was stuck working in, and a lot of our callers obviously can relate to. So I wrote a book, I made a movie, I got it into media, I became the founder of well.org. Things just got really busy. I was doing lots of video content for direct to consumer and all that. And then a lot of my corporate clients just start calling me back and saying, hey man, I see this thing that you did. It's great. Do you think we could license it? And so suddenly things that I had produced that were lifestyle oriented became very sought after by my former corporate clients who still remembered me and held me in high regard. And suddenly, fast forward another 6 months to a year, well.org provides wellness media and content to over 2,200 corporations out there. And it's alive and well. I mean, there's a lot going on in the industry. There's a lot of opportunity for doctors, and we'll get into it. And I put together some slides. And I know that there's a chat room. So Wendy and some staff are in the chat room. So if you have any specific questions, you can air them out there, and then Wendy will kind of feed them to us, and we'll answer them towards the end, or something's really a burning question. She'll kind of intercept us in the middle. But this is, I like for this to be a conversation, because look, we're all out there, we're all on the front lines, and we're all trying to figure out how to help people. And tonight we're going to talk about how corporate can be a very good option for that. How's that sound, Eric?
That sounds great. And I just want to say that this release that I got yesterday, it says that in 2015, 70% of employers that they surveyed say they're offering wellness programs, and that's up from 62% in the previous year, 2014. Does that jibe with what you're seeing and what you're hearing from the companies you're working with?
Man, the ones who don't know they need to, and they're all clamoring, and they're calling me to say, what do I do? And so basically Obamacare has done a lot of things wrong and a lot of things right, depending on what side of the fence you sit on. But one thing that it's done really right for this industry is that it's mandated wellness programs and initiatives, and we're going to get into how that can benefit you in your practice in one of my slides here. Because look, it's the law of the land, and now companies have teeth, and they could enforce some of the stuff that we're hoping we could get pushed through a decade ago. So it's really created an opportunity for us to be able to step in there and say, I know you're looking for wellness programs. I know that you're having problems with X, Y, and Z, and I'm here to help. And it translates into real patients into the clinic, and it also translates into really wonderful consulting gigs if that's what you're into. So it all kind of depends on where you come in in the landscape here. But they either have it or they're looking for it desperately, and that's where we're at in the world of corporate wellness right now. There's a tremendous need, and there's just a real lack of quality human resources, and by that I mean practitioners, people who know what the heck they're talking about. Because I run into all these consultants out there all the time, and they've got no business being in this business. They're just salesmen. And to me, it's like the doctors are out there struggling to, kind of make ends meet and get their practices going, and all these things that are kind of shameful for a system that could be as good as ours could be. And then, all these consultants and middlemen making a fortune in corporate. So hopefully by the time we walk away from this call, our listeners will have some strategies already kind of built into where they want to go and use corporate as an opportunity to drive more practice revenue and just kind of diversify the portfolio, if you will, because really doctors are who deserve to be in there, and it's not hard. It's just, no one's cracked the code for you. So I say we do that first.
Sure. So let's jump into that. What's the foot in the door? What's the sort of the I don't want to say the quickest or easiest way, but what's the first step for physicians or practitioners who want to get into the corporate space? How to go about it?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to just jump into the slides, and
Okay.
we'll just kind of surf those from here. Can you see these?
I certainly can.
Did you see the full screen, or do you see the like
I see.
PowerPoint?
No, it's in set in a frame. I don't see the full screen.
Okay, let's see. Slides. Can you tell I'm not the tech guy around here? All right. Boom. Is that full screen for you, or no?
No, no.
Then I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
But I can read them, and I
You can
assume
read
everybody
them.
else can as well.
Let's see. Give me 2 seconds to figure this out. And if not, then we'll just hang with it. Let me go back here. Oh, you're just going to present to everyone. Okay, so now I know I'm presenting. Now let's just figure out what the piece that it was missing there is.
Okay.
There we go. Let's go entire screen. There we go. And then I'll go here and go here. Beautiful. See, goes to show. How's that?
Bingo. That's
Bingo.
perfect.
All right. Goes to show. I run a multimedia internet empire to figure out a slideshow. All right. So let's get into who's needed in this space right now. Pretty much all the healthcare providers that you could think of are needed, because what do we have problems with? We have problems with weight management. We have problems with stress. We have problems with diabetes, heart disease, all the big things. And so the essence of, what we can do really, this might sound hippie trippy, but it's really the human pain and suffering, because guess who's in these corporations is our neighbors, right? They're just people, right? And so whoever you're treating in your practice clinically is also who you would be treating in a corporate environment. It just seems like, oh, they're behind some sort of weird corporate wall and they're hard to get to. And it's just because we don't speak the language yet. So let's look at the landscape real quickly. 50% of corporate profits right now are going to healthcare costs. And we all know that those are lifestyle diseases that are getting us into those troublesome times, and then that the companies know this too. And they're working as aggressively as they can to figure this out. They need a solution, and the old benefits model isn't working. One of our head guys over here came over from one of the big insurance plans, and I recruited him away when he knew what we were doing. And basically his job was to go on behalf of, one of the big blues plans to one of these big employer groups every year, school teachers and all these types of wonderful, hardworking people in our society, and saying, okay, here's the good news and here's the bad news. The bad news is you're getting a 20% rate increase this year. But the good news is we're also increasing your deductible and giving you less benefits. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much like the same song and so he's going to all these people that are already like suffering and saying, look, I don't know what to tell you, but healthcare costs are out of control. And so the companies know this, the TPAs know this, all the providers out there obviously know this, because we're the ones treating the people in our practices. And so the doctors in our universe, the traditional care docs really don't have time to talk about lifestyle. And so I know a lot of your docs have kind of moved over into functional med and different types of parameters for how to change the way they practice. And I think that, this is a conversation that I'm happy to entertain in our chat thread too, is, how do we become better at intercepting and preventing disease? Well, corporate is where that happens, because once they become an ICD 9-10 and you start having to, allocate CPT codes, that's because, we waited for them to get sick. And so we can get in there and really do some wonderful work on the front end of that. So the profit goes down the drain. This is the pain point. When you deal with a patient, you want to know their history. You want to know where their challenges are. What is their chief complaint? Here, for the company, the chief complaint is money. And so that's one of the first mistakes I see healthcare practitioners in particular going in and trying to talk to companies. They start talking about the modalities that they do and wellness with this, wellness that. Let me tell you something. No one wants to buy wellness. People want to buy looking good in a bikini. People want to buy their headache going away, and people want to buy, more energy. They don't like wellness isn't something that, is sold. You don't package it that way. And a lot of the practitioners do so because they don't understand that the pain point for the individual is probably, I don't get enough sleep. I don't have, I have too much stress. And for the company, they don't want to talk about wellness. They want to talk about money. And so if you can put those together and help the individual and help the company, you are creating a win-win-win. And that's when we start getting into some of the best pieces of this, right? Is I'll go in there and I'll know that the estimated cost, right now it's 16% of GDP. It's going up by 2020. It should be over 20% of our gross domestic output as a nation. Right. And if you're an international listening to this right now, I work with people in Germany, in the UK, in Australia, and in the Middle East. This is not a US phenomenon, but these are US statistics, right? It's just not pretty anywhere. Anywhere the modern Western lifestyle has been adopted, we're having the same problems. And so we're looking at an annual cost of about just under $10,000 per employee on healthcare. So if I could put together a proposition that could potentially reduce some of those costs by, say, 20%, that's a $2,000 saving per employee, and that's only going to cost you $100 to $500 per employee per annum to make that happen. As a businessman, Eric, what does that sound like to you?
Now that sounds good. So what you're saying is you can go to corporations and say, look, for X number of dollars per employee per month or per year, I can deliver this. I mean, is that the basic model?
That's one way. I mean, I'll go in and you say it's called PEPM per employee per month. And, like if we're going to just put in our software, we'll say, look, it's $2, $3, $10, depending on the size of the company, per employee per month for the software that's going to help with health trackers and all this. I'll assign a health coach. I'll have a family practice doc. I'll have, all sorts of things that you add, and you just kind of beef up the budget and figure out what it is. And you establish, kind of really clearly defined parameters for what it is that you're going to do, what those KPIs are, what you can expect out of this. And man, they got the budgets for it because guess what? You're carving out of the losses that they're seeing every year. And so it becomes a very interesting proposition when you understand how to speak their language. Like we all know how to speak medicine. We don't know how to speak corporate, right? And corporate profit. And that's kind of where I got pulled into this again, I got to say, is, when we have 2,200, I have probably close to 2,300 companies now that we provide wellness, either information, services, content, whatever to. And, the question I always get is, hey, doc, who do you have in Nebraska? Who do you have here? Who do you have there? And it's like, I don't. And so I don't really know who to recommend. I was sending them to the IFM database. I was doing all this stuff. And then I realized I'm not in the position to recommend people who don't know what they're talking about. And I'm definitely not interested in hiring 350 doctors and having some big top-down organization. I got enough, I got kids at home. So,
right.
And so I decided to kind of help train docs in this. And it's been extremely beneficial because now we're, teaching doctors how to speak this language, teaching practitioners, nutritionists, health coaches, and they're just out there doing it. And once you can speak this language, it's way easier to get in there,
now,
right?
Speaking of the language, you used a term a couple of minutes ago, KPI. For those of us who are not in the corporate space, what does that mean?
Key performance indicator. So basically what you want to do is look at what your goals are, right? So if you're like, as a physician, my KPI for like, say, a diabetic patient would be to get their blood sugar down to X number and, deal with their A1C here and, maybe bring down their body weight or whatever, right? So for a company, you say, look, you're paying up to $343 for a high blood pressure patient. So let's look at KPIs saying, okay, what we're going to look at is this subpopulation of, say, 200 people that have high blood pressure. We're going to put them in this program, and we're going to, our KPIs are going to be, we want at least 60% participation, and we want to bring blood pressure on average down by, say, 10%. I'm just throwing numbers around, and that 343 number, we're going to look to drop to 200, right? And so that is effectively where my, just off the cuff KPIs are going to be for this company for those blood pressure people, right? And in doing so, then it's not like, hey, I'm here to sell wellness and maybe some balloons and we'll bring a pony and all. It's just this garbage that these companies have been subjected to over the years. I mean, look, we're physicians, we're doctors, we're here to help, right? And so how can we help is like, the proof is in the pudding. We're here to change things and help understand where not only the person's pain point is, but the company's pain point. And the company's pain point is this dollar sign right here, right? And so learning to speak both those languages, all of a sudden they say, hey, this guy gets it. Thank you. Get in here. Let's have some more conversations, right? So a couple more statistics, 24% of employees have high blood pressure, right? Let's just say that's 1/4 of the population of corporate America, which is hundreds of millions of people, right? Have high blood pressure. What can we do for that? And what kind of money does that save on the catastrophic side of ER visitations and time off work and productivity and life lost and all of it, right? So these things are there. The companies know it. This isn't a surprise. Like, you don't need to go in there and tell them, hey, your healthcare's sucking wind. That's the first thing that they say, and they might even open up a bottle of whiskey and start talking to you about it in really kind of slang terms, because it is hurting them. It is hurting them. They all know it. They all are looking for solutions. And so really what's happened with this Affordable Health Care Act, some people call it Obamacare, is that there have been incentive and disincentive programs established now. So what this means is, okay, we now have 2 types of insurance programs that we're offering. Curtain A has a really great insurance plan where you only pay a couple $100s a month, and it has a very low deductible and includes all these awesome things, and it is a great plan, and we're happy to offer it. Curtain B is 3 times as much money with a higher deductible and more out-of-pocket cost, and if you want to qualify for Curtain A, then all you need to do is participate in our wellness program. Boom. Look at that. Someone just gave you teeth, right? And so that's what the Affordable Health Care Act has mandated and has allowed for. So it's mandated wellness programs for companies over, say, 50 employees. And it's also allowed us to, quote unquote, not discriminate, that's not the right word, but help create incentives and disincentives to say, look, you could choose to smoke, but I don't have to give you the Cadillac insurance policy and subsidize that behavior. Right. And so with that, we're finding employees moving over in droves saying, yeah, I'll do the wellness program, whatever you say. So now that's where, the statistics that you were talking about when we first got into this is that's where the back pressure is filling for companies saying, wellness program, please. Right? Because everyone is moving into that model and everyone's wanting it. And so learning how to contain medical costs and bring some of these numbers down and help get more participation is proving to be incredibly lucrative. So what we need is more doctors in the space. We need more health coaches. We need more nutritionists. We need more acupuncturists, chiropractors. There's a lot there. I already spoke to this. And so the biggest issue to date and why things are different now is that participation had been abysmal. What do I care if you have a wellness program? I'm going to eat these Doritos and you're going to pay for my health care and it doesn't matter. Right? So
you're saying that was the employee's attitude in the past.
Yeah, that was it. Exactly. That's where they were. That's why corporate wellness has been such a bear. And now with the law change, and very few people know this, with the law change, we can go in there, explain this to the company, help them establish a program that will incentivize people to do the wellness programs, and then you start to get that magic thing, which is called participation. It's buy-in. It's like the same thing as having a compliant patient. I mean, how much nicer is it when they actually listen, right? And so it's been hard to get results in the corporate environment to date because the participation has sucked and the people just have not really had any skin in the game. Now that that's changed, we have ourselves something we can do, and we're seeing it. I mean, you mentioned statistics coming in. Right now, it's a $200 billion industry. Last I checked, I think a couple months ago, it had already grown 17% in 2015. 62% of companies are offering it. The rest of them are looking for it. And anything over 50 employees, they have to have health insurance, and they have to look at these policies and programs to say, what am I doing for wellness? That wasn't a conversation when I was involved in this business 10 years ago. That was not a conversation that was being had. So it is really refreshing, and it's exciting. It's exhilarating to see that these changes are now law, and that this law is now really changing the healthcare of the country. We're seeing the needle start to move. It's really, really encouraging. So here's what I do, and this is a bit more advanced, but I just kind of want to draw this out there for the business people. So if you're a doctor, physician practitioner who wants more patients in the door, I'm going to show you how to do it. But if you are also more on the business side, you want to look at kind of diversifying and getting into the consulting gigs here, you got to see that the wellness programs out there are generating 4 to 5 times. So it's 4 to 1 or 5 to 1 ROI, which is return on investment. And so the deals that I make, because this isn't my first rodeo at this point, is I'll go in there and say, look, we'll look at your numbers, we'll look at their claims data and say, look, based on what I'm seeing on your diabetics and your heart disease patients, we think we can save you $5 million in the next 5 years. I want 25% of those savings, and I want 25% of those savings reinvested in wellness programs that we will put into effect here. So 25% margin straight to me, 25% reinvested in more wellness programs, and you're saving half of that. So you're saving $2.5 million in a market that's going up 20% a year in cost on these populations year over year, over 5 years. And I'm gonna carve out a margin for myself, and I'm gonna carve out a budget for my corporate wellness business for years to come. And it's beautiful. It's lucrative. It's wonderful for those of you who are more business oriented. This is what I've been showing physicians and basically practitioners how to do for a couple of years now, and it's pretty cool. Here are the most popular wellness programs out there right now. Amongst the 62% that have wellness programs already up and running, look at it, it's like 41% are doing fitness programs. Nutrition is almost a quarter of them. Stress management, huge, right? It's almost 40%. The other is pretty much all the other stuff. But medical self-care is really where most wellness programs had been focused, because we see it in the claims data, and you're like, look, these diabetics are costing us a fortune. These heart disease people are costing us a fortune. And some of it is, it's hard to prevent. It's like you have a really good year and you got one person who gets a cancer diagnosis, and there go your numbers. But the rest of it is, if we're talking about blood sugar, we're talking about cholesterol, we're talking about a back clinic and lifting, a stress clinic for hypertension. This is all stuff that we know how to do, and we know how to do way better than the consultants out there. This is what we do day in and day out with our clients, right? And so this is the current landscape. And this will shift around, but if let's just say you have you're in nutrition and weight control, that 24% of programs do weight control and 24% do. So 50% of the programs out there are already doing what you are doing professionally. So why isn't your program in front of a company, and why don't you create a modular version of what you do and sell it to a company for multiples and thousands of dollars, and then get that many more people in there. So this is the basis of our model that I've been teaching a lot of our students in our Corporate Wellness Academy over the course of the last couple of years. And it really is predicated on understanding that these 3 spheres, this Venn diagram where these things overlap, is where our results are going to be and where the phone is going to keep ringing. So analysis, what does that mean? That means basically sit down and take a history, figure out what is the problem at this company. Don't go in there with your one size fits all solution. Go in there and figure out, like, if someone comes in and is complaining of 12 things, you don't just hit them with your headache solution, right? But that's how a lot of physicians interact in the corporate model, and that's why they don't get the gig, right? Is sit down, figure out what the problem is, then come up with a program that will service those needs, and then have whether it's pain scales or weight or some sort of objective metrics that you set up to monitor and track and use data-driven decisions to keep moving the chains forward. This is absolutely critical. If you're watching this, listening to this, take note. You need to have analysis, then have your programs custom catered to what those needs are, and then go for results and track results and really monitor results in a way that's going to get you to the promised land. The same way you would do it if a patient came in and they had hypertension and they had, blood sugar issues and all this. You take the labs, then you come up with a program and say, okay, here might be my pharmacological intervention, here's my nutritional intervention, here's the exercise you need to do. I want you to report back to me every 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is. And we're going to look at these numbers and we're going to keep nudging you along. It's the same thing on a meta level with the company. And when you start looking at it that way, then the company goes, great, she speaks my language. He understands me. The company understands that you've got them and you understand their needs. Now you've got yourself a business, okay? So what are their needs? How do you know, right? So go in there and ask them. A lot of times they'll have claims data. A lot of times you can do a company survey and just kind of do a broad-based survey and be like, what are your problems? What's this? What's that, right? But your HR director, or if it's a bigger company, your wellness director is going to be like, oh yeah, it's those people on the assembly floor. They're all obese. They have really high BMI. They lose a lot of work. They're not focused. They cut off fingers, whatever it is, right? And so then what I'll do is we have a health risk assessment. There's a number of them out there that I can introduce to you, and we'll give them a health risk assessment. We'll get a sense, and it's desensitized, right? Like HIPAA compliant. So it's not like, oh, looks like Johnny's an alcoholic, but it's, here's a problem we're finding with your company, and then go to maybe have key interviews with key players within the organization and be like, hey man, what's up? Like what is the problem? I could talk to, the people in the C-suite. I could talk to the wellness director and all this. What is it with your people? What is it with the guys on the assembly line? Like what do we need to do here? Right. And then, some of it's blue collar, some of it's white collar, some of it's seasonal, some of it's, truck drivers. So you go in and you figure out what the problem is first. Right. And a little bonus there is the workers' comp. Basically, workers' comp is another huge place where they're bleeding, right? And we've been affiliated with a number of companies that do this, and we've been tracking our own internal data. And a lot of the statistics out there are just on the other side of the fence, also a reduction in workers' comp claims to the tune of, say, 30 to 35%. On average, is 32%. And that is also money, right? So once we realize, hey, they're sleepy after lunch and they're like, cutting their fingers, what do we need to do to change that? And then you will start to see that year a reduction in healthcare costs and workers' comp costs. That is real money to the company, right? And that makes a huge difference once you go in, right? And I need to point this out real quickly because it's an important piece that I think a lot of people miss. Is understanding the dynamics and the difference between the people you would be talking to. When you are interfacing with human resources, their world is about morale, participation, employee retention, keeping them happy, social proof, feedback, all these things that make them, you need to make HR look good. You got to make it like a fun, happy party. It's kind of like, hey, we all work here. We love working here. We don't want to have any problems. Let's take care of this. Versus, sorry, it's a misplaced slide. Maybe it's not. So happier employees make more money for the company, period. And so HR understands that. So HR is about fun and participation and making sure that the employees are enjoying it. And they thought, oh yeah, this was cool. Versus the CFO who's like, okay, what's this going to cost me? Why would I spend this money? Come on. right? So then with the CFO, you're talking about reduction in premiums, reduction of claims, lower absenteeism, presenteeism, bringing up the profitability. The recruitment cost is huge. Losing an employee costs 1.5 to sometimes 3 times the annual salary in trying to like replace that person, right? And so these are enormous gaping wounds in these companies, and the CFO knows these. So if he knows or she knows that you know this, you know how to talk to them, you know how to talk to the HR, you've got yourself a win. So, a lot of times the question I get here is, hey, so, how do I even get in touch with these guys? And I could say, running a clinical practice, all I do is I'll just run in and check the charts and see where they work and be like, oh, you look at, looks like you work at Intel. What do you do there? Cool. Well, yeah, how's work? Oh, it's really stressful, this, that, and the other. Is it stressful? I mean, is this something that happens a lot? Is this something that is kind of universal at your company? Oh man, it's terrible. It's like, well, I have a stress thing that I do. Who can I talk to over there? Like, oh, Betsy in HR. She's a good friend of mine. We have lunch every week. I'm like, great. Hook me up with Betsy, will you? Right? Or the CFO, or, in my case, I was in, metropolitan LA. A lot of CEOs were my clients or my patients. And so I'd talk to them about it and they'd say, yes, I'm very interested. I say, great. What do we got to do? They say, show up, let's have a meeting and we'll make it happen. And boy, does that make it easier, right? You go in, the boss turns to the HR and says, we're doing this. And then it's just about follow through. So there's a lot of ways to get your foot in the door, but you got to understand the language in how to do all this, right?
It sounds like what you're saying is the place to start is the place that's closest to home, which is your own patient base. If you've got a panel of 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 patients, every single one of them, or most of them, will have jobs. They're working for somebody. They're working in companies. So start there. Find out who they work for, what the situation is at their jobs, and see if you can get in with people you already know. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Bingo. Yeah. The lowest hanging fruit is usually your own clinical practice. If you're just getting going, then, we could talk about ways of, prospecting and all this. And I have people that had zero background that are in there with companies now because, we taught them how to pick up the phone and visit them and do health fairs and all this other stuff. But, if you're already in clinical practice and you're looking to diversify, this isn't about cold calling. This is about the people you take care of, who already know, love, respect, and trust you, learning how to speak to them in a way to then accelerate your support of them by going into their company and helping all those other people too. It's so easy. It's so easy. Once you realize that you have what they need and you just got to speak that language better, it's really, I'm telling you, it's easier than it's ever been, and it's just a shame there's just not enough doctors in this business right now. Here's a couple other stats if you care to geek out. The cost of presenteeism can range from $22 to $117 per employee per month. So if you could keep them healthier, and so presenteeism is basically I'm sitting at my desk playing Tetris. I'm sitting at my desk looking at Facebook. I'm sitting at my desk trying to work, but I can't think through the food coma, or the stress just makes me not care. So those are all things that we can handle very well. Absenteeism, same thing. It's like hygiene and getting things cleaned up and having hand washing and depending on what the problem is, obviously keeping people healthy so they don't miss work. And so, a lot of the things that we've done, we're saving over 25% in healthcare costs. And you're talking about companies that spend millions of dollars a year. So I am finding money and turning it into a very lucrative business for myself and my team here, because we know how to help people. And guess what? There's people on this call that spend their days every single day helping people. So, hopefully we can connect those dots for you here. Here's some components of wellness programs that work. You need assessment activities we talked about. You need materials to communicate. Now, one of the things that differentiates well.org and a lot of the work that I do now with all these companies out there, and why my phone rings off the hook, is because they're calling me saying, how the heck are you getting such good open rates? And I said, well, because no one wants to read your dumb newsletter. I'm doing video, I'm doing e-magazines, I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing all kinds of cool, sexy, sleek media stuff. And I just blow away the competition. And so people are just calling me saying, hey, we're tired of this idiotic newsletter that we spend all this money on every year, and no one utilizes, can we come over and use your stuff? So I'm like, sure, I'll take your money, right? So learning how to do communication materials, I've been teaching people how to do that. We have a whole academy for that.
You're talking about communication materials that the corporations are sending to their employees. Is that it?
Yeah, but basically it's like, okay, here's your daily yoga stretching. Here's your 3-minute breathing technique. Here's 5 ways to, get breakfast in before you come to work. Here's, here's what we're doing this week. We're going to have, we're going to install blenders and have a vegetable delivery service and have smoothies available for you guys, and how to get that across so that, the employees care is a big part of that, right? And then we also provide the self-help materials, which is, here's the 10 things that we have. Here's a video on how to poach eggs if you didn't know how, and whatever they're asking for, right? And so we figure that out, but we do it in a sleek and sexy way. We teach our docs and we teach our students how to basically create these assets in a cost-effective way. And then guess what? Once you have those assets, I created this thing called the Vitality Challenge 4 years ago. And guess what? I just resold it to GE today, right? And so, boom, great.
High five.
High five, man. You know what I mean? And so it's a win-win. GE, guess what? Health isn't that big of a mystery. Stop eating like an idiot, move your body, sleep better, calm your stress, all the stuff that we do every day. But it needs to be delivered in a way that's approachable so that, your people in these companies care. And the problem is, people treat people in corporations the way they would speak to another corporation, which is yawn. It's boring, right? So how do you engage people in a way that's dynamic and interesting? And that's a whole other side conversation we can have. But that's one of the most important components to doing wellness well. Group programs are terrific. You need short-term benefits, right? If I take on a population of people, say with diabetes, I'm not going to reverse anything, let alone control anything in that first 4 weeks, let alone maybe 6 weeks, maybe 3 months. I don't know. I don't know who these people are, how far gone they are. So what are my KPIs? What are my metrics that I'm going to watch on the short term? Is we're looking at blood sugar. We're not even looking at A1C, right? We're looking at blood sugar. We're looking at whether they had breakfast. We're looking at, their consumption of say sugar and flour and leptin levels. There's also all sorts of different specialties probably on the call, so I'm not going to get too granular. But what are the short-term metrics that you're going to monitor on your way to a long-term goal? And you need to identify those and share those with the company, so they're like, hey, these people still have diabetes. You suck, right? That's not how medicine works. Yet people go in and sell wellness programs with a lot of sizzle, and then they burn themselves out because there's no way you're going to reverse diabetes in that first month. Sorry, right? But you can show that you have progress, right? We've done advice lines. We've had nurse case managers. We have a very sophisticated software system that's beautiful, and then we license it to our graduates because it really helps show infrastructure and really kind of build out what you can offer them. Promotional materials. What do you have? What have you done? How can you skin it for corporate? We've actually, for our students, we basically let them use our promotional materials just because it took so dang long to make that it's just like, here's a head start. What kind of incentive programs? It's like, hey, company, I want to do this thing. We're going to get some participation. I need you to put $3,000 aside into some products or some gifts. I want to have, a contest for a mountain bike and some Fitbits and this, that, and the other. And so let's get the first 20 participants to get a Fitbit and some vegetable delivery, right? I'm sorry, people just like rewards. It works, right? And then looking at, programs for self-care, medical self-care, having guides, having workshops. If you like speaking in front of people, great. Corporations love that. They pay good money. I get paid good money to go stand there. But let me tell you something. Before I got good money to stand there, I used to volunteer my time for free. And I do a 1-hour lunchtime lecture at a company and have them agree to let me, book appointments for my clinic down the road. And I would get 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 people coming up to my assistant that I'd bring with me to the back of the room, signing up for appointments in my clinic. And so the average lifetime value of a given patient in that clinical setting that I was in was about $3,000. So you get 20 people showing up that are worth $3,000 to you. That's a hell of a payday for an hour of free time donated. So you don't have to get paid then to really see the results later if you understand how this game works either. And then creating programs. I have gotten very good at creating programs because I know what it is, and I've really been able to translate that into very accessible conversations with people because, I've been around the block, and so this is part of the stuff that we share is you need to, that should be data feedback. You need to be able to create things that they feel like are custom for them, even if it's kind of the same thing you've been offering the other 50 companies. Customize it a little bit and create materials that they feel like speaks to them. If they have a very big Spanish-speaking population, guess what? You're getting a translator, right? You have to service their needs so that you get your results. It's not about selling in and then running to the next thing. It's one of the I had a practice manager who said this to me once, and it really stuck with me. Is like, there's two kinds of practices. There's hunters and then there's farmers. The hunters are constantly hunting fresh kill and are always looking to turn over new leads, new companies, new patients. And the farmers develop relationships and they build those relationships, and those relationships yield family members and referrals and other companies and whatever you're going to look at for years to come. So be a farmer, right? Cultivate relationships, take care of this company, because guess what? When I landed my first company, I did them right, and they introduced me to 3 other companies, and the dominoes started falling from there. If you don't do it right, the phone doesn't ring, and then you're out there prospecting. So just, I can't overemphasize that. You just got to do good work, and that does wonderful things for humanity. We have modular programs. We have we have kind of a personal development program, our life mastery program. We have our Vitality Challenge, which is more health and wellness oriented. And I've created these as consumer facing programs that I now license to my companies. And we also let our students license because it's good stuff. And it's easy to do because everyone needs this stuff. So you price it in a way that's affordable. You don't need to make $1 million on a person. You could make, 20 cents a month on a person. And when you scale it, suddenly you've got $10, $20, $50,000 a month coming in, because turns out there's a lot of people sitting in these companies, right? Another point I'd need to make, and again, I emphasized it earlier, and I just want to circle back on this because I have a lot of docs that suffer with this, is people trying to sell wellness. And when you start looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the essence of what the challenges are in people's lives are the same with companies. So they're coming in, they don't want health, they don't want wellness, they want relief from pain. So if it's a person, they want their headache gone, they want to lose that weight, they want to fix that knee, whatever it is. And then they'll move into saying, okay, that guy, that gal really helped me. I really appreciated that. And now they put me on a diet and they're helping me more. Now I'm super involved and I am, I've drank the Kool-Aid and I love this stuff and I'm going to refer my friends and family. The same hierarchy of needs works with companies. You go in and they're like, hey, you know what? Pedram came in here, we were bleeding out on our diabetics, or we had all this problem with stress. He put in the stress program and we had an average of 6.5 stress level in the company. And within 3 months, it went down to 4.8. And then 6 months, it went down to sub 5. And here's our absentee numbers, here's our presentee numbers, and here's, 5 other things that we looked at. Dude, this worked, right? Then they're like, hey man, thank you very much. What else do you got? And it's like, well, hey, listen, what we have, we should do a walking group. We should do like a buddy system with Fitbits. We should take this population over here. That's a challenge, and move them up over here. And then you start getting your advocates inside the company. You have your proof points. They love you, right? But you don't go in there selling them on this like multi-million-dollar wellness program when they don't even know who you are. So address their pain, address their chief complaint first. And this is, if you don't take anything else away from what we talked about today, this is important because this is how advertising works. This is how corporate wellness works. And I learned this the hard way because, I was selling wellness for years, right? And, and now I help millions of people, and I do sell wellness, but that's all through the back door, right? What I'm actually selling is relief to their individual pain. And then there's million ways to track results. I mean, depending on what your experience in this industry is here, you have biometric screenings, you could have pulse oximetry, you could have weight, you could have BMI, you could have things very simple, you could have sleep scales, you could have oswestries. It's just, again, and I don't want to get too granular, there's a million ways to track results. You know what you're doing. Now you just have to actualize this in a way that you could share it with the company. And I would share it monthly, quarterly, depending on what the population is you're dealing with. And then take those results and keep using them to justify what you're doing and to really perpetuate your existence into further and further realms here. I deal with a lot of companies, and I've moved up the food chain, right? Like I've done on-site programs and lunch lectures and health fairs, and then kind of moved into more consulting with, kind of helping with groups and coaching people along. Then we developed our software. Now I consult, and I've really kind of become a brand. Why? Because I know what I was doing and I got the results. And guess what? A lot of people get in there and they're very adversarial. They're like, oh, here's the insurance person, that person sucks. You're like, no. I want to make that insurance person look really good, because guess what they have in their portfolio? 300 other companies, and they all need wellness too. So, I go in there, I make everyone look good. And when I do so, they start introducing me to all sorts of other opportunity. I mean, I'm having 20, 30, 50 new patients coming in from a new company into one of my clinics, just because they're like, hey, this guy's great. And we, it's like a good old boys club, right? It's like you go off of referrals. It's like, do you trust this person? It's like dating. You feel more comfortable dating someone who is a friend of a friend or someone you met off of an online thing, right? And so it's the same thing. These insurance brokers then go in and say, hey, I work with this doctor, she's great. And so you start getting calls from people who already want your services versus people who are screening you. So working up has been a tremendous, wonderful, wonderful thing for me to generate more abundance in business in corporate. Eric, do you have any questions here? And the chat room could feed questions. I want to go into some take-home ideas, and then we'll take some questions and kind of poke around some of these topics a little bit more. And I'm going to take a sip of water while we do that, just because I'm...
Sure. And yeah, I want to encourage everybody, if you do have questions for Pedram, please type them in the chat. Just off the top of my head, I had a couple of questions. One is, obviously the healthcare cost issue is a big challenge for companies large and small. But if I'm a physician or a practitioner and I'm looking at where can I gain entry, where can I gain leverage, am I best off looking at large companies, which obviously have lots and lots of employees, but are going to be it's going to be harder for me to get to the decision maker, or should I go to the small and medium-sized company when I'm first trying to get into this? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Great question. Great question. So I'll tier that question into a couple pieces. One is, obviously, the low-hanging fruit is going to be the small companies, because they don't have these big, huge kind of brokerage groups and all these kind of deals for wellness coming at them. And by small, I mean, look, 2,000 employees is still considered small, and 2,000 you could do a lot for 2,000 employees. Mom and pop shops a little different, but you could go to a small company and make a huge difference and make a fortune, and work your way up from there. That's the usual trajectory. Here's my caveat. It just so happens that the CFO or the CTO of Cisco is a patient of mine and they love me, right? Different math. You're like, dude, take me in there, right? And so if you look at your patient profile and you start looking at who's in there and what they're doing and what their relationship is with the company and all that, and you could find, if you could find someone to ride in with, all bets are off. I mean, I've seen people who have very little to no experience in this industry suddenly be like, hey, I'm getting paid $5,000 a month as a medical consultant for XYZ company, and they're sending me more patients that I know what to do with, and I've just hired an associate, right? So to answer your question, usually, start with the smaller companies and work up, but you never know who you know, and you'd be surprised who you know. Just start looking in those charts. Or have, and let me put a quick caveat out there for that as well. Is if you're a physician and you're a practitioner and you're already busy and you're trying to figure out how to diversify and all this kind of stuff, yeah, sure. If you get a patient in front of you, you look at the chart. But you could get a $10 an hour employee to go through and start parsing this data and coming up with a hit list saying, hey, listen, Mr. Jones is coming in on the 3rd, and he's got, he's somebody over at, some company. So you don't, like, I have a lot of physicians that, want to get this training but feel like they don't have time. And what we've done is we've trained their staff. And it's just as good. I mean, you need to know how to speak the language when push comes to shove, but you don't need to know all of it. You can train your staff and then suddenly have your foot in a very lucrative business. And for me, I just, I got burned by work comp in 2004 in California. I got burned by Blue Cross a couple times just when they're like, hey, listen, we don't want to pay those bills. And, I just got to the point where I got really tired of asking third parties for the money that myself and my docs work pretty hard to generate. And so I don't need to get into that litany, but I then decided to take matters into my own hand and then swam upstream. And then I became the referral source for multiple doctors in my community. And, it's very rare for orthopedic surgeons to be taking an acupuncturist out to lunch, but I was feeding these guys more new patients than anybody else. And that's because I had a line on the one thing that's the most important in medicine, which is, in banking, you call it deal flow. It's patient flow. The patients came to me, and I was able to then move the patients around into the community. And I had a lot of favor from the community, and I had a lot of referrals back from the community because I was suddenly the hand that fed. It was really an interesting turning of the tables. And so, I can't emphasize how important it is to have a foot in corporate, because this is where the flow of medicine is going. And if you miss that, you're going to have some third-party consultant taking a piece of your action and telling you what to do and how to practice medicine. And I'm just tired of that.
Right. Have we got any questions from our attendees?
I'm not seeing it on the chat thread, but I know you had one more, and then I'll just go on to the take-home ideas, and then we'll field some questions from there.
Sure. Yeah, my other question had to do with, you mentioned, blue collar versus white collar, different kinds of health issues in different types of companies. Are you seeing a big difference? I mean, is the need for corporate wellness type programs greater in, say, the manufacturing sector versus, say, publishing versus, media companies? Or are you seeing like kind of, there's some universals? There's going to be a lot of diabetics and heart disease risk and obesity, no matter where you look, whether you're talking about an investment brokerage house or, a company that makes widgets. I mean,
no, I mean, it is kind of all over the map, but I think it's very industry specific. In a lot of the blue collar areas, we have a lot of issues with motivation and just trust issues. Like, they don't even trust that their employer cares for them, and they're very covetous and stuff. Yeah, exactly. And so there's all sorts of weird kind of psychological stuff that we got to deal with for team building and kind of creating a better environment and atmosphere. We will see a lot more, say orthopedic injuries in blue collar. We'll also see a lot more diabesity, right? We're going to see, with lower SES, we're going to see higher lifestyle chronic diseases. But then I also deal with some of the tech giants who I consult with. And guess what? Those people ain't sleeping, man. And those people are so stressed out that we're also seeing all sorts of white collar type of things. I mean, they're not hurting their backs per se, but they're falling asleep behind the wheel and crashing on their way home.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's just everyone's messed up, and it just depends on kind of what side of the fence you fall on, and what, pick your poison. Really, it ain't pretty out there, I'll tell you. But as a healthcare provider, that just means more work for us, right? It's opportunity. It's like, man, I could fix this. I could help this person, and so that's for me where I jump in and say, look, I actually see a credible amount of opportunity and utility. Where I could actually apply my skill set in a way where that person doesn't make it to the ER, and their kid has a dad to grow up with. So, we've saved a lot of lives, and I feel really good about that.
And you should.
Yeah. So let's get into some take-home ideas here.
Sure.
You want custom solutions. You need custom solutions, and you have to understand their needs. I mean, that's just kind of the baseline of what we're talking about here. You got to track your results and go after the big issues, right? You don't want to really you don't want to really like go after everything at once. You want to go after where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Fix that, and then they'll give you all the small stuff. Okay. You want to identify the key performance indicators with management and really manage expectations so that they know what we're talking about. You kind of walk through that, and then they go, okay, yeah, great. This, he's a man of his word, and he did what he said he was going to do, and we had these results, and that's great. They love that stuff. Remember, this is corporate America. They love spreadsheets. They need data. So make data-driven decisions. Use your KPIs to kind of influence what you're doing, and then really manage expectations. We talked about this with like life cycles of your programs. Your diabetes program isn't a 2-week program, right? But your stress management program could be a weekend intensive, or like once a week, and then create a meditation CD or create some assets to give them, and then track them and kind of incentivize participation, right? And the way we incentivize participation is gamification. You want to make it fun. You want to make it interesting. If you're not that interesting, hire an interesting person to go in there and jump up and down and keep them motivated. It's not, look, like some of us are older. Some of us are more tired. Some of us don't care. Some of us don't want to public speak. It doesn't mean you can't have this business. It just means you need to put the right people in the right places. And one of the things that I learned very early on is I can say yes to a lot of things because I'll look at their needs and then be like, wow, these guys really need an ergonomist. Too bad I'm not an ergonomist. Sorry, bye-bye, right? And I'd say, no, okay, great. We're going to set up an ergonomics program. We're going to get some standing desks in here, X, Y, and Z. And then I would run out there in the community, find an ergonomist I like, and say, hey, I have a gig for you. How much, right? And then they say, okay, well, here are my rates, and say, great. I'm going to do a 20% override, or you're going to give me a 20% discount, and whatever it is, you work out the math to carve in a margin, get them some work, and then if you like working with them and you like what they're doing and they follow your rules, and you enhance things together, then hey, look, you're in business, you're going to do a lot more work together. And guess what? That ergonomist probably has business back for you. So it becomes a really nice virtuous cycle there. And as you gamify it and you work and you share, you can then upsell other things. You can say, hey, listen, it looks like our weight management program was a screaming success. I would like to set up a cooking clinic for your people. Great, Pedram, we love you already. Come on in, right? And then you bring in an executive chef, you give them some business, you network with them, they give you more business. This is how it works. And so learning the climate and learning how to manage this and learning how to speak this language isn't that hard, but it is a big part of how to get into corporate. And most doctors don't, and they falter and they fail, and then they wonder why, it just wasn't successful. Yes, 736. This sounds like there's an education component. More details, please. To qualify, do you mean in terms of what we do to educate, or in terms of what you need to do to educate them? So I'll wait for 736. So impersonal. The chat thread sometimes doesn't pick up names. So yes, 736. Just elaborate on what you want me to talk about, and I'll do that. And the next question: when employees are short on time or low on participation, how do you collect data effectively? Great question. Great question. And that's really the crux of this whole mess, right? Is you need to negotiate with HR, the wellness director, whoever it is, to carve some time in their work day to do some of these things, because no one wants to do this crap at home, right? No one wants to take more work home. I want to see my kids. I want to go to the gym. I want to do other things. Or, these people probably don't want to go to the gym, right? But when you get the buy-in from the company, then you say, listen, you're not allowed to yell at them when they're doing the meditation for 20 minutes. Trust me on this. And then you start to get that, because they're not short on time, they're short on time for this. So when you start to allocate that, you get more participation. And if they do the meditation, then they're like, holy crap, that worked. And they're like, wow, look at John. John's doing so much better. I should do that. And so it becomes an upward spiral. So I hope that answers your question. So what you do to educate. Yeah, so I'm going to get, that's actually in a couple slides, 736. So I'll get that to you in 1 second, because we have a pretty sophisticated program for that. And I'm just going to answer one more question. I'll move on to that right now. We have a different focus in Britain regarding health insurance and companies. How do you view the role for this within our context? I actually love working in the British market, because the healthcare, although there's universal access, there's these huge long lines, and you want an MRI, great, we'll get it to you in 6 months. And so the service there, the National Healthcare Service, the NHS, is basically choking on bandwidth, and a lot of the companies have the same retention, absenteeism, presenteeism problems, and so it's becoming very vogue and chic and important, and almost like a competitive necessity to have wellness programs. So this, in the next 5 years, is going to blow up in the UK, in Germany. I already have students all over Europe that are just like, oh yeah, they're lapping this stuff up, because what's happening is you might have socialized healthcare, you might have a better national healthcare system, because the kind of corporate healthcare system in America is fundamentally flawed in a lot of ways that I'm not going to get into here. But the Canadian system, I have doctors in Canada that are crushing it because the companies are asking for it, and the lifestyle parameters and the stress and all that stuff is pretty universal. And so how we go in there and put a Band-Aid on a problem isn't what we're talking about. It's to intercept these problems and help create better corporate culture and healthier people. And that's needed everywhere. I got people in Dubai, I got people basically everywhere doing this stuff now. And it's just the beginning. So it's a very good time actually for the UK. And I'm seeing a tremendous amount of promise there, and the market's even less saturated. I mean, it's growing 20% per annum here in the United States, and we're not even close to saturation. And I think UK even has more promise long term. So I think that you're in a wonderful market there. Let me see. So let me talk about what we got going on here, if I can, with your permission.
Absolutely.
What happened when I started getting approached by all of these companies saying, hey, who do you have here? Who do you have there? Was, my answer inevitably was nobody, because I didn't feel comfortable just sending people to the IFM. I didn't feel comfortable just sending people to what it was that I thought would make a good doctor, because inevitably what would happen is these physicians, these practitioners didn't speak corporate and would screw it up, right? And so we started to do an internal training for some of the docs that we worked with, and then I realized the need and the necessity was far outweighing what we wanted to do as an organization. I make movies, I write books, I do a lot of things that don't require having 1,000 doctors that we employ. And so we made a decision as a business here at well.org to say, look, why don't we train healthcare practitioners in how to speak this language, how to go in there and get the business, how to do all this stuff, and go out there, teach them how to fish, and go get it on their own. And then once they go through our curriculum, we'll certify them as graduates of ours, and then put them on our website for our companies to be able to peruse. And we could say, hey, at least they learned what we put out there, and they understand the basics, and here's people that we can at least endorse. So that became the birth of the Corporate Wellness Academy. And what it is basically 12 modules that are weekly modules. Don't stress out, because if you fall behind, you have access to it for life. So it's not about like TikTok, you're missing out. But I mean, so look at it. It's introduction to corporate culture. How do you talk to these people? How do you set up a corporate wellness business? How do you interface with the CFO? How do you interface with HR? What do you need to do to track results? How can you maximize participation? How do you do your custom programs and create them? How do you negotiate fees? Traditionally, doctors suck at negotiating fees. We're not good. We're not good at asking for money. We're good at helping people. So how do you do that so that you can, make money at this stuff? How you deal with the insurance world, and how you interface with people that already have, hey, I have an insurance broker that does X, Y, and Z. You're like, great. this is where I come in versus, oh, shucks, I'm out of here. What the Affordable Healthcare Act means for you who are in the United States, and we actually in Module 10 have another module for how to do this on in international markets, because we've had hundreds of students now, and so we have a lot of international students. How you get clients out of the companies, because you could get instant ROI. Like I said, my average lifetime value of a new patient was $3,000. So getting a few of those out of a company was pretty profitable. And I could do that all day, every day with my eyes closed, because I know how to do this. And then how do you create a system to kind of have it all come under a fold so that it's your thing and you've packaged it? So it's 12 modules, 12 weeks. You could do it, but you also have access so your entire staff can look at it. I don't care who learns it in your organization. You need to know this. This is where the market has gone. This is the future of where medicine is going. So if you're sitting there waiting for Blue Cross to pay your bills, or advertising in Yelp to get people in at $500 a pop, you're missing the fact that the building next door probably has 20 potential patients or clients for you that would love to come see you. They just don't know how to see you, and you don't know the value prop to kind of connect those dots. So we created the academy. It's all online, but we have weekly calls. And the way we did it is say, how can we support our students? And say, great, we'll have a weekly call on a given subject. We crowdsource the subject. So if people say, hey, listen, I want to know about this, and we got enough people doing it, that'll be the subject that week. And we've created unlimited support to our support line, so that when you land a gig or you run into trouble and you say, hey, listen, I talked to this company, what do I do? I have a number of our trainers and our coaches and our experts online to jump in and say, hey, look, great, this sounds like a wonderful opportunity. I would probably ask them this, I would do this, I would move around this way, and here's a couple of resources. So, it's a lot of custom content that then you can kind of cater to whatever your particular needs are, with questions that will help support you in wherever you are in this business. If you need more clients, great, use the academy for that. If you start to get offers to say, come in and consult, then how do you price it? Great, we have all that in there as well. And if you want to move this into a multi-million-dollar business and become a corporate wellness company, we'll show you how to do it. And so we created that arc, and we left it open for lifetime membership, just so you don't feel like, oh my God, it like passed me by and I don't have time and I don't know, what I need to do next, or I don't have time for this. So that became the Corporate Wellness Academy. And what we started doing just for this call is we said, okay, look, Eric and I go way back. Eric and I have done some great lectures together. I love the work that you guys are doing. For the people who sign up for the academy, we're going to include an onboarding one-on-one consultation saying, hey, tell me what you got, tell me what you're doing, tell me what your needs are. I'll tell you how to navigate the curriculum and help you through this. And then you can walk through it and you can access our support at any time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just, what, I want to make sure the people that we credential are successful at this. And there's a lot of people to help. And so I'm also putting in a special module for the lunchtime lecture training. So if you're just trying to figure out how to get more patients through the door, you can go in there and get 5, 10, 15 new patients with a lunchtime lecture, and this is how you do it. And
wow, boom. Look at all the people in that lecture. None of them are looking at their cell phones or typing on computers or anything. They're all really paying attention.
They're totally captivated. That's the art of the doodle, right? And that's it. And so we teach how to actually be captivating. We teach how to do one of these things so you walk out of there with appointments booked, and which equals real money in your pocket, right? And we realized a lot of our docs and practitioners didn't feel comfortable talking in front of people, so we're including a speaker training module from some of my best people in Hollywood, and also just how I do it and how I've traditionally done it and been successful at it. And we've also lumped in some additional sales tools for training and handouts and videos and all sorts of wonderful stuff that we've created for our students to be able to just use well.org's assets. until you could build a lot of your own, lean into us and let us do it. And we also did a module on how to do a successful online summit, because we found a lot of our docs just don't know how to use their tech. So it's like, here, let's show you how to do this. Let's show you how to start building a mailing list. Let's show you how to prospect and start working this, or have your salesperson, your marketing person, your office manager do this stuff. But you need to know how to do it. That's where it is. So there's the link to it. Basically, the entire program is priced at $1997, so just under $2,000, which is under the lifetime value of a single client you get. And I've left it at that price because we were originally going to do a 3x of that price. I've left it at that price because there is such a need. I can't tell you how much opportunity there is out there. And so I don't want to gate guard and make this worth the $10,000 that it's worth, because we literally, my frank admission is we need more people in the business, period. Mm-hmm. It's kind of sick how this business is growing. So for under the lifetime value of a single client or patient, you get the entire thing for life. You could run your office through it. And one of the things that we decided to do, I was talking to Wendy before I came in this, was for the one-on-one consultation for your people, and I mean this not even for the replay, for tonight only, if you sign up tonight only, the one-on-one consultation will be with me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and believe you me, I know my way around this block. So, let's look at your business. Let's see what we need to do. Let's see how we got to turn this thing on for you and get this understanding under your belt and give you access to my team, so that anytime something in corporate comes up, for the cost of less than one acquired patient, you know how to handle it, and you know how to phase this up and turn this into a real business for yourself. So that's it. I mean, I don't need to sell this thing. It's kick butt. It really does do what you need it to do to get you ready to get into corporate in whatever, to whatever degree you need. We've addressed all of that. And you know what? If there's something that's not in there that you think you would like to learn, we add modules every week. We are actively building this as an ecosystem. So this thing 3 months ago was not as good as it is now, and every day it gets better, and our graduates are already very happy. And then once you're done, you are on well.org as a certified corporate wellness practitioner, and we then open that up for our other companies that we work with to look at and say, here are the awesome people that we've already credentialed, and boom. I don't guarantee business, but boy, can I tell you, there's a lot of eyes on my website looking for people that know what they're doing to work with. So I got a couple questions here. I'm going to jump in real quick, and
Sure.
We're pretty much in question land. So let me, I'll end the slide thingy. How do I do this? Here we go. And I'll stop that. And so Eric and I can hang out with you. Boom. There we go. Yeah. Might as well. I got all these I'm on the set for one of our TV shows, and I got all these studio lights on me. So I probably lost 3 pounds of water weight just doing them. So thank you. All right. So yes, 736. If you have any more questions, that's kind of what we're teaching. I'm happy to answer more. Guest 8896. If we're not going to run the entire program itself, but just want to be a go-to speaker, educator in someone else's program, how do we determine a fee to charge? That's really, there's a book I would recommend called Value-Based Fees. And it's really determined by, so you could look at like what the comps are of people in your area that are doing this stuff. But also what I would do is say, okay, what is 1 hour of my time worth, plus travel, plus, and then what can I get out of this? If I'm going to go and do this for someone else, it depends on the industry, right? So if you tell me what industry you're in, I mean, I don't charge less than $2,500 now, but I've been at this for a while, and so it's just you have a different price to get out of bed, depending on where you're at in your career. But I was going and doing lectures. My standard kind of start rate was about $250 for an hour talk. When I wasn't doing them for free, I was charging $250. And then from there, I would sell bundles and say, look, I'm going to come in once a week for the next 16 weeks and, pay me up front, and, it'll come down to like say 200, right? And then I would try to negotiate the ability to still be able to get patients out the back. And that was, the money on the front end was cute. What really worked out was the 10, 15, 20 new patients every time I'd show up, I know what to do with those at a clinic. And that was the real money. But, I would say 250 is a pretty good start point on a one-off. And then, if they're going to bundle it, do a discount if they're willing to bundle and sell a bunch to you or contract you for a bunch. NIMED, how do you customize interventions for employees of a very large organization? One size won't fit all. No, absolutely not. And so that's a great question, NIMED. Is what I would do is go after the big fish, which means where are the diabetics, where are the heart disease, and this is just an assumption, right? And I don't like to make assumptions. What I would do is say, let's look at your claims data. If you're willing to share it, it's desensitized. It's not like, Joni has diabetes, but 27% of our healthcare claims are going towards diabetic type codes, right? And they know this, or their insurance carrier knows it. Someone knows it, right? And so someone's really watching these numbers, and it's no joke, right? Like, people are very, very, very interested in why this bleeding is happening. So what I would do is say, let's look at the claims data. Let's see what the big deficits are, and let's come up with programs for the populations that we think we can help the most within your organization. And look, for the entire organization, I'll send a weekly recipe video, or what I do is I do our health risk assessment, our software, and say if it's a very large organization, say it's 50 cents per employee per month, 10 cents per employee per month, and you make maybe 2 cents or 5 cents on top of it. And then so you have $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in revenue coming in just to kind of administer a global solution. But then for us, the software looks at those numbers, and then based on that, in a desensitized way, I have a better understanding of how to effectively do better for them. So the more data I have, the more useful I am. And that's how I deal with large organizations, is I just, I study them. I understand where their pain points are, and then I know how to be relevant and helpful. And that's really the name of the game there. And that software, by the way, is also for our graduates. Our graduates can license that software and profit share and just throw your own name up on it. And then you can really go into a very large organization and look like you have an enormous footprint, because the software has more than 15,000 data points with labs and biometrics and all things that you can ask them. It all can go in there, and then there's short questionnaires to longer questionnaires, and different ways that you can structure it to get companies to use it and get health scores on these individuals, using those health scores to then help with what? Data-driven decisions. And you use those data-driven decisions to just get better and better at what you do. And guess what? That's when the phone starts ringing, and then it doesn't stop. Just get good at this stuff, and you have a very lucrative business, because you now know how to help more people in a meta type of way, right?
Pedram, that last question raised an interesting question in my mind. Are typically these contracts, when a practitioner or physician contracts to do corporate wellness, are these year-long type deals? So you're getting $2,000 to $5,000 or however much it is coming in the door every month for the year? Yeah.
I won't do it on a one-off basis anymore. When you're first starting, it's like, you do things for the money. But, I will sign a 1-year contract on a PEPM per employee per month basis and say, look, it's going to cost you $1 an employee per month. I know my costs. I'm going to profit, say, $2-3 grand from this company, and then I'm getting all this data, and they're going to charge. I'm going to charge them if I'm going to go in and do a lecture. I'm going to charge them if I'm going to go in and create whatever. They need an exercise program. I'll get one of my fitness guys and say, hey, I need you to create an exercise program for this company. I'll pay you $5,000, and then I'll resell it to them for $10,000, right? And so there's a lot of ways of doing it, but get the annual contract so that then you're their guy, right? You're their doctor, you're their person, and then you have a lot easier opportunity to kind of just be in their ear and help them as things come up. And frankly, you want to be in their corner, and you can't be in their corner out of sight, out of mind. And so if you're not watching the numbers with them, you're not able to help them as well. I got a question. Do you offer individual modules such as lunchtime lecture training? No, we're not offering anything currently. Oh, sorry, Wendy got to that. Like that currently, just because the academy is so robust and has everything in there that I got too much going on to cannibalize this thing. We actually have like a media training component and just so many things that we put in there. So, a lot of our students don't use the whole thing and they don't think they're going to use the whole thing. And then 6 months later, they're like, holy crap, I went back to like module 4 and it saved my butt on this deal. And it really came in handy. So what I would say is there's a lot there that you might not think you need. And then once you start having your first couple meetings with companies, you'll realize why we put it there. You know what I mean? Like, I've been around the block. Yeah. If someone introduces you to a corporation, you go in and host a wellness day and bill employees insurance for your services, what would be fair? What would be fair to compensate the referral source? If they introduced you and you're billing, I usually send them to a Laker game. I usually take care of them and give them more business. I don't like doing cash kickbacks for referral sources. But then again, it's not illegal. You're not paying for patients. You're paying for a referral. I would just be very careful there. 7189. And I would just give them something of equal value. In Japanese, they call it giri. You owe them giri. Like, hey, you just really hooked me up. Let me hook you up with something else. And if they, or you can just give them a gift. I would do that. I don't like paying people in cash for referrals. I like paying in referrals for referrals because then it just kicks business around and just help more people. But that's my own thing, right? Joyce C. Thank you for your time to present this information. This is in the direction of where I wanted to go with my wellness practice. What is the time investment to learn your material and put the skill into action? Great question. Joyce, I would say a minimum of an hour a week will get you there. I like to say, for someone who's gung-ho and wants to go, if you could put in 2 to 3 hours a week, and if you fall behind, you catch back up. But 2 to 3 hours a week means not only learning the material, but then looking at how to implement that in your own practice. Because for me, learning stuff is cute. Implementing it and turning that into a real solution inside your wellness practice next week shows ROI and it shows profit. It's kind of like long-term, short-term. Learn the stuff, but then start implementing it as you go, because all of a sudden you'll find that you're making money and you'll find that you're getting more clients and things are working better. And it's not like this guy just talking. It's, wow, that actually helped me get ahead. And so I would say a good 1 to 3 hours a week is really a great level of investment to get in there into your own practice and your own time. If you fall behind, that's fine. There's no one is sitting here chasing you, but the sooner you go through it, the sooner you're credentialed, the sooner you're on our list, and the sooner you have those thousands of, sorry, this thing keeps catching, the sooner you have those thousands of other companies also seeing your profile and creating opportunity for your wellness practice. So, the answer is the more you can invest in it, the better off you are, kind of like anything else good in life. Right.
Well said.
All right. Let's see. I'm fee for service. Do I need to participate in insurance in order to host wellness in a corporation? Absolutely not. That's a great question. Guess 3698. When I moved from LA down a bit further, I stopped taking insurance and I doubled my rates, and I was never busier. And the corporate business kept rolling in, and I would just negotiate a rate and say, look, if you want to come into my clinic, vitamin drips are this much, and the acupuncturist is $150, and we just negotiated fee for service rates outside of the insurance model. I do that. I do it with Parker Hennepin. I do it with a lot of these big companies, and you don't want to ding their insurance if you can avoid it. Now, if you're in the traditional doc model and that's how you make your money, you're careful, because if you start talking about cost savings and you're charging the heck out of their insurance, that's a problem, right? And so the goal is to get them well and help more people and not have to tee off on an individual insurance. I love fee for service because you know what? it's just pure transactional, and it gets those middlemen out of the way. And the middlemen, I think, have caused a lot of the problems in healthcare. So I think that's a actual power position to be in, and you can negotiate rates with these companies for fee for service. I mean, I've had people come in for executive physicals. We'll charge them $3-4 grand for each of their C-level executives, and we'll just run through a battery of stuff and take good care of them, just like I would a normal patient. And I don't treat them any different than I would a normal patient. It's just found business, right? It's just more people that we can help, and it just so happens that these people came under this banner from this company. So it's just another sales channel in a lot of ways, right?
Great question.
Eric, you were going to say something?
No, just saying great questions. These are all really good, nuanced questions.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, I mean, we can hang out for a couple more minutes, take questions. Eric, you and I could chit chat while more questions roll in. Look, I've been doing this for a while. I've been very busy. It's been very lucrative for me. And I really, really, really want to teach this to more people to get out there and do it. I mean, we've had several hundred people run through the program. Last year, we've only let in a few hundred total. I think we only let in like 50 this year, just because we were really working on perfecting it and making sure that people didn't have problems and didn't get lost and all that. Now it's like, man, I need to open it up and get more people in front of my companies, and that's why we're here. Is the need out there? Like, I wish you could hear how often my phone rang. Right? We need more physicians who know what the heck they're doing in front of these people, because if not, the middlemen and the consultants get in there and they just keep ruining it, man. I don't like how they do it. They don't understand how to take care of people.
And for my part, the reason we got interested in this as holistic primary care is that we go to so many conferences where really well-intentioned, high-minded physicians are learning great clinical skills. They're learning all this functional medicine. They're learning all this integrative stuff. But so many of them are stuck in practice structures, practice models that don't allow them to really implement what they're learning. And so we're constantly on the lookout for ways to help more physicians put into practice what they're learning at IFM or at ACAM or at the Holistic Medical Association, whatever it is. And it seemed to my mind that this corporate wellness space is a really good venue for that, where you can actually put into practice the preventive medicine that you really can't do in a conventional insurance practice, where you have to see a patient every 10 minutes, and it's all about matching the right DRG to the right prescription and getting them out of there as fast as possible. So it seems like if I'm reading the situation right, you've got companies that are looking for exactly what holistic and functional and integrative doctors have to offer, and it's just a question of how to bring the two parties together, and then we can really make some very transformational things happen in healthcare.
Yeah, and I want to caution against this kind of, how do I say this all or nothing mentality that a lot of us have, which is like, oh, I don't want to be a corporate wellness person. I'm a this person. And that's not how reality works anymore. We need to diversify. So I'm not a corporate wellness person. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a producer. I'm a CEO. I'm a physician. I'm the janitor of my house. I'm a corporate wellness dude, right? I'm a father. I got so many damn roles because that's just the way the world works now.
Sure.
And so this doesn't mean you give up what you have currently. It means you invest a little in a corner of the universe that's bubbling up and becoming lucrative, and so you follow the opportunity and you diversify so that your practice is always robust and healthy. And you got to know this stuff, because this is where healthcare is going. And so you don't need to change your identity to do corporate wellness. You need to just understand corporate wellness and also do some corporate wellness. And if you love it, do more corporate wellness. But it doesn't mean folding up your practice. It means feeding your practice with yet another way of getting bodies and patients in the door. And if you want to consult, then you do that stuff. But I just think that it's career suicide to not know this, given that the industry is heading in this direction. I had a question from guest 736. Can you please restate the hierarchy of needs? So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's from pain to health to involvement to becoming an advocate. So you got to come in on the pain point Then they're interested in health and say, hey, look, this person got me out of trouble. Now, I feel better. So now, sure, tell me more about health. And then they become more involved, and then they become an advocate. And that's the same arc for a company as it is for an individual. This is, I've taken a lot of advertising 101 and spent a fair amount of time in my life learning about this stuff. Now that I run a media company, and we do movies, we do TV. We just brought someone over from the History Channel. We have a lot of very sophisticated new media that we do at well.org. And so I'm a student of life. I'm always learning, and that's why I'm successful. So, learning about how to deal with companies is just something I do. I don't need to be doing this, but I do this because it's interesting. And what's interesting will constantly keep you in the flow of abundance, because you're following the abundance of the world and where things are going. If I see a market growing 20% per annum and I see the laws changing to favor that market, I'm interested.
Bingo. Yeah.
That's it. I'm interested. And that's just good, solid business. A couple more questions. How much of your program do you run on site at the companies versus at your office or another office? For me, that's a great question. For me, I do most of my stuff online now because, I'm just tired of traveling. I got young kids at home, and I've made certain lifestyle decisions. Look, they're going to write me a $25,000 check, fly me first class. I'm there. Right. And that happens. And that happens. But, I've gotten way pickier, but because I have residual income coming in. It really depends on if you're a brick and mortar person or if you do better with online stuff. Like, I'm really good now with camera stuff. So I'll stand in front of the green screen. So I'm in the studio right now, and then there's a kitchen set over there. We have a huge sound wall, and then we have a green screen set over there. I'll just have them light up. I'll speak directly to it. I'll create some videos that become an asset class that I can resell 1 million times and provide that for the company. And I prefer that because guess what? That's 4 miles from my house. But man, there's a lot of money in going brick and mortar. And so I've done both. I used to do a lot more brick and mortar. Now I'm more of a media guy, and I enjoy the media. So that's kind of just where I've ended up, but that doesn't mean that's where you should end up. I'm actually a great public speaker, but young kids just take the wind out of your sails. So who knows? Maybe I'll do more travel later, but the getting in front of the group is a very powerful way of impacting people's lives, selling on stage and doing all those things. So, I hope that answers your question, but, both are super relevant. It just depends on where you're at in life. Does the corporate wellness practitioner certification count for those of us who are still students in our health practitioner programs? Yeah, it's not a license to practice medicine or health. It's a license to understand corporate wellness. Now, what we do is say, we're going to certify you the day you go through it, and the day you graduate, your certification is there as well. So, we will put in brackets that you're still a student, but you understand the stuff. But, at first I was really hard about it. And then I realized half the students I deal with are still running circles around these idiot consultants out there talking health and not knowing what they're talking about. So so long as you're concurrently enrolled in a program, we're okay with it. And, either way, we have an exit interview, and, if I feel, or whoever is on the phone with you feels like what you're talking about, like, get out there. It's kind of like a MASH unit. It's like, I can't be picky. There's a lot of bleeding people and body parts everywhere. So let's just get out there and help them. So as long as you're enrolled in a program, we'll accept you at this stage. Jeffrey, I'm rather unique. I'm an optometrist specializing in nutrition for eye health. Wow, that's cool. How would that fit into the corporate wellness model? Eye health is a thing, right? I mean, I have podiatrists, I have dentists, I have all sorts of interesting people coming into our fold because they're like, look, these people who have eye problems actually still work in these places called corporations. So it's an interesting thing, right? Is just, the same people are parked up in the same rooms and cubicles having the problems. So, I don't know specifically, but, is eye health contributing to migraines? Is eye health a problem for people who are sitting in front of spreadsheets? Can you set up an eye health program for people who are having visual fatigue, that are dealing with lights and all this kind of stuff? I mean, we use all sorts of apps now. Not now, I'm in this bright studio sweating, but, we use all these apps right now that are, low light emitters and taking out the blue light and all sorts of stuff for circadian rhythms. And so eye health is a big deal. I know in my high-tech industries, I know eye health is a big deal for eye protection and eyewear in my blue-collar industries, but nutrition for eye health is an interesting model. And to tell you the truth, Jeffrey, I don't really know where that interface would be, but you would. So what I'm doing is like, all I do is teach you Kung Fu, and then you're out there and you could fend for yourself, right? Like learning to speak corporate is just useful. And then you can take that and go into whatever direction you want and see if you find an interface for that. And, I'm happy to poke around and play at it, but I have people coming at me from all walks of life saying, hey, listen, I took the course and now I'm doing this thing for pet health with companies. And I said, pet health, they don't even work there, but people are interested in taking care of their pets. So it's like, what? Great, power to you, knock them dead. Board certified occupational medicine, now certified in functional medicine, wondering how to put this together into a wellness program. Well, I mean, that's the pedigree you need for this business. So that's pretty good.
Can I ask, Pedram, are corporations looking for functional? I mean, is that functional medicine term, has that penetrated the corporate world at this point?
I would say that falls right into our Maslow's hierarchy of needs conversation. Is no one cares about functional medicine. I'm tired. My back hurts, right? And so understanding how to take what we do as functional medicine physicians and apply it to the real world problems that they're complaining about and correlating that with the claims data that they're suffering from and with, that's where the conversions happen. No one's buying functional medicine except people, giving money to IFM, right? But corporations are buying solutions to their problems every single day. So guest 7339, I would say absolutely. You are, I mean, that's like the perfect brass for corporate. And so you just need to, figure out how to package what it is that you're doing in a way that's relevant for the companies in your neighborhood. And you'll be busy for a very long time. So yeah, that's a shoe in there. And Jeffrey, you have opportunity, and God, what a tasteless pun, but I don't see it clearly now, right? but we could work to see it together, right? Like I'm not here to just sell stuff. Like, if we could find a fit and find a way for you to get into a corporation, for me it'd be fun, because I don't know. There must be something there. You know your stuff way better than I do, because I'm not an eye guy, right? So, all right, let's take a couple more questions. We're already over time, and I just want to make sure that we're here and honoring everyone's time. At the same time, if you have a burning question, you could hit us up. And then the support line is support@well.org. And Wendy she runs a lot of our programs, and she's wonderful, and she runs a lot of our one-on-ones with people, kind of just helping onboard them. And she'll be there to help and support at that point too. And again, like I said, and I don't do this often, Eric, how much I travel and all the stuff that I do. I have a new book coming out through Rodale in February. And so we're just getting ready for book launch mode and all the things that I do in the well.org world. But, I feel very strongly about corporate wellness. I feel very strongly about it having a promise for our future. And I feel as a patriot, I feel like it's the right thing to do for our country and for whoever, whatever country you're in. Is healthcare is broken, and I was able to find an interface to fix healthcare in a very meaningful way through corporate. And I truly believe that you can too. You just need to know how to speak the language. So if we don't have any other questions, support@well.org. And like I said, my offer for my own time to do your one-on-one onboarding is only for people who sign up tonight. You got to want it. You got to know that this is for you. And then I'm willing to put in my own personal time on this, which I charge $5,000 an hour for. So let's not even talk about how much it costs to get me in places now, because I'm getting snooty with my sleep because I got young kids at home. And then from there on, if it's after that, then you'll be with my very qualified staff, and they'll help you onboard it and all that. And and I think that's it. So well.org/HPC Holistic Primary Care is the link. go over there and register and join us, and you will have lifetime access. So that's kind of the way we hedge our bet there, is to say, look, you're part of the family. We're going to take care of you from here on. Learn the stuff, and kind of join the team so we can help more people.
That's great. Take advantage of this, folks, because Pedram's time and his know-how and his knowledge is very, very valuable. And I just want to say thank you for offering this to our audience. Also want to let you know that Pedram will be at our Heal by Practice conference in October if you want to meet in person and shake hands and talk a little bit. That's October 16th to 18th in San Diego at the Marriott Coronado Island. So come on out, join us, and Pedram will be there along with a stellar lineup of other physicians and consultants who can help you move your practice in the direction you want to go. So with that, thank you for joining us and spending time with us on this this beautiful evening, and take advantage of the Corporate Wellness Academy. Thanks,
wonderful. Pedram. Hey, thanks for your time, Eric, and thank you all for your time. I know you're busy. I know we all got stuff going on. Hopefully this can help us get more efficient, get more money in the door, do more with our time and maximize it and help more people. I mean, I got into this to help people, and so I'm able to help more people now than I possibly ever could sitting in my brick and mortar, because I've expanded my reach, and so hopefully we can teach you to do the same. Eric, thanks so much. Say hi to Meg, and any other questions, support@well.org. We're here to help.
Thanks a lot, Pedram. Be well. Take care, everybody. So long.
Thank you.